Yeah, I'll probably get it all edited up. So I meant to say this is gonna be episode 69. So
Hey, the best episode. Let's go.
Welcome to the Tactus Media Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cargill. I'm excited to explore a ton of different topics with you. It's gonna be a lot of fun. In the past, we've talked about video marketing, brand, strategy. There's still gonna be a lot of that, but we also want to tackle some issues that are happening in Portland, fun concepts, as well as some engaging stories. All right, let's kick it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tactus Media Podcast. I'm very excited to be joined by special guest Blair Lindberg, who we actually went to the same high school and the same college, and today we're going to be talking about not only what video means to us, but what the Duck TV program at the University of Oregon meant to us. They are shutting this program down. Super sad, super devastating for students, because that is where I got a lot of my chops, was being a part of crews for 3 out of the 4 years that I was there, and getting to learn alongside and get that hands-on experience on what it means to be part of a film crew and create something with others. Blair is a University of Oregon graduate, cinema studies, Duck TV alum like myself, and he does freelance video production and photography up in the Tacoma, Washington area. I mean, I guess you can do that kind of anywhere. And then he's also a video production teacher at Curtis High School, which is awesome. So he's giving back to the community and helping the next generation of filmmakers make good stuff. And he's a good teacher. He's an amazing wealth of knowledge, as you guys will find out in this episode. But yeah, helping these students get off to a good start, because there's a lot of different ways to approach a video. But if you have a good foundation, you're that much more likely to succeed. So yeah, again, check out Duck TV. There's a petition going around. If you check out the show notes, you can learn a little bit more. And yeah, please help out. Us creatives need to stick together and make those resources available for people to have the best opportunity for success. So this is an awesome episode. I had a lot of fun on it. Let's get things started. All right, Blair Lindberg, thank you so much for joining me on the Tactus Media Podcast. We have some business to get down to. There are things happening at our former school that well, I guess both of our former schools, and we can get into that. Yeah. But at U of O, they are shutting down Duck TV, a program that is near and dear to our hearts. And Blair, maybe you can introduce everybody and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Blair Lindberg. First of all, thanks for having me on the show, Brian. I appreciate that. I am a Curtis High School alum and a University of Oregon alum. Brian and I did Duck TV back in the day. And then we became freelance photographers and videographers, and now I'm teaching actually at Curtis, our alma mater. So, and I'm doing video production, which, small world, right? So, yeah, that's kind of my little short bio elevator pitch, I guess, if you will.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think we can kind of just unpack that a little bit, definitely going back to the early roots, Curtis. But then, we were able to collaborate. We were both, graduates from University Place, Curtis High School, for people to put it on the map a little bit. But then we did Duck TV, which I did it for my 3 years, or for 3 of my 4 years. I wanted to do it freshman year, but I had to kind of apply. And I remember I was talking to some people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you definitely want to do Duck TV." So I remember doing those auditions and tryouts, and eventually sophomore year, I was able to start doing Duck TV. My first show was a show called Mob Bros. I don't know if you remember that one. And it was kind of walking down the streets with these guns that kind of are they look like guns, but that's in college, that's what you're doing. You just capturing, trying to create I forget who the director was.
It was Mitch Marzarelli.
Yeah, Mitchell. And Mitchell. He was incredible. And for me, it was a great experience to learn different camera angles, and those small projects allow you to not only operate a camera, you're able to be an actor, you're able to help direct. You just kind of fill all the roles, and it's a really unique experience for me. And then we worked on the lab together. But maybe you can talk about a little bit some of your experiences through Duck TV, and what were anything that stands out in particular?
Yeah, I mean, so I transferred actually. So I started at Southern Oregon University, and I was working at Rogue Valley Television Station. Like that was their film program that they ran there. So I had a little of experience when I transferred over to Duck TV, and I was like, hey, I can use this, right? And so I was already a junior, so I was kind of behind the ball, but I had some experience. And a lot of people don't know this, but I actually, the first job I had for Duck TV was we had a orchestral like symphony that we had to organize that we tried. I think it was Zach Shivers was like, yeah, we really want to have like our own scores for these shows. And I was like, wow, that's super ambitious. Like, who's going to take that on? He's like, you are. I was like, what? I don't know. I know zero. I can't read music. I can't like write music. But he was like, no, you're just going to call up, all these people and try to get them organized. It was like something like 60 people, right?
Wow.
Like it's like a large arrangement, and we had to fit them in like a small studio. So you can imagine um, like it was like East Eugene. It was like out in the middle of nowhere, and it was like some guy's house. And he was like, "Yeah, I have a studio recording." And so we tried to fit like 50 people, and they're all like, "Nah," and it was a nightmare. But we ended up not continuing that after like the first semester. And so then he was like, "Well, let's try to like you can try out for shows and stuff."
Was it so?
Um,
It was like a weekly like orchestra thing, or was
yeah,
it like a one-time deal that you had to like get cameras and film it and like just coordinate all the logistics around it?
yeah, it was weekly. So they were like, this week we're gonna do like the title intro for whatever show or like the news, and like nobody could ever meet like at the same time, right? It's like college. They're like, oh, when can you meet on Saturday? They're like, 1 o'clock p.m. or like it was a nightmare. And so what we had to eventually do is we were there all day, and then we'd have people like record, and then we would like go in and layer it to try and make it work. And it was a nightmare. So like you can imagine like, okay, we're gonna have the violins do their piece, and then the brass section come in and do their piece. It felt legitimate. Like it was a legitimate process. Like that's probably what we would do in the industry right now, right? Like to work around people's schedules. But it was like for my first job, I was like, oh my god, like this is not what I had expected. But I think it was super like invaluable, and a lot of people would have said, this isn't for me. But you kind of have to learn that skill of organization. Like that's the biggest thing when we're working on the lab or even Mob Bros, right?
Yeah.
Working around people's schedules and figure out, okay, what scenes can we shoot with these people that can meet, and that's like a invaluable skill that a lot of people overlook, and they say, well, this is just not what I signed up for. Well, it is, but you just don't. It's not as clear as you think, right?
Yeah, you have to be nimble. You have to be able to
So
kind of like roll with it. Do you want to pull
yeah,
your mic just like slightly closer?
yes,
Yeah, that's good. I
that
think it's
works.
just the audio thing that goes you know how the gaming mics do it.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, you kind of they throw you right into the thick of things and you just have to figure it out. And that's no different than the real world, honestly. But what was
yeah,
nice is that the stakes are a little bit lower, because
yeah,
everyone's volunteer or you're a student learning it. So they give you access to the equipment,
right,
and in exchange, you're able to create some stuff and gain access to those equipment or access to having a group of people to build stuff with is hard to do outside of that kind of environment of Duck TV. Um, and then I always thought it was kind of cool. You had an advisor, you had a teacher that was
yeah,
like overseeing everything. Rebecca Force, shout out,
yeah,
with like the
of
Force
course,
Award and all that. Like,
yeah,
and I thought that, and I think you even got a class credit doing Duck TV,
yeah.
right?
If you did, I think both semesters, you got like 1 credit. Yeah, it was like, um, yeah, I would have done it for free, but yeah, I think there was 1 credit if you did it for both semesters.
Well, I think that's like all of us creatives. Like we just wanted to make stuff, and
Yeah,
like you could. I'm just trying to think like logistically, if you're to try to do it on your own, you just to like find all these other people that also have an interest to make stuff was hard to do. But when you like everyone at Duck TV like wanted to be a part of making something, and you're able to find who are the other filmmakers, who are the people that want to be part of news, who are the
yeah,
other musicians. Like it kind of like because film touches so many different aspects, it brings
right.
together all those people that are like-minded, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, like if you try to do that in the real world now, right? This is what's funny about this is what's so important about things like Duck TV, like programs like that, and especially in universities and high schools. Like having a crew that you can count on and be like in creative, like synchronized patterns where you can like, okay, we're gonna film this and like get those reps with the same crew is super important into your process of becoming an artist, becoming a filmmaker, a writer, whatever it is, editors, getting in that style of like, I want to learn from people and like having them not, I'm not saying you have to be that crew forever, but having a crew that you can count on so you can get those reps and skills and build on that. And then, slowly taking on new people or working with other projects until you can earn that right outright. And, that was what Duck TV was like. I think there was one point I was like, I will, if anybody asked me to do anything for Duck TV, I would have done it. I could have been, operating a boom. I could have been using the camera. I could have been
Which you did
editing.
all
It
of
didn't
those
matter.
things.
Yeah. There, I think there's at one point I remember there's one week I was in every show acting because they just needed actors. Like nobody was available, and I was like, I'm a loser. I don't have a life. I can be in it, right? And so they
You
were
had
like,
free time. You had free time.
yeah, I just had free time. I'm just joking. But they were like, are you in every show? I was like, I think so this week. Because I loved the process of just being out there and doing something and creating something from scratch, right? Like a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, I'm just gonna make like a sound or a meme, and I'm just gonna be TikTok famous now. Like it doesn't work that way. You have to really be out there and be in it to
Mm-hmm.
really get those experiences and get to know those people and work with those different crews, right?
Yeah, and there's like
Um,
kind of a special bond, I would almost say, like when you're on some of these crews, like
yeah,
you get to know people and you're around people long hours, or like people are putting in their time around a school schedule. So like maybe you're done with all your classes and then you're gonna be on set for like 4 to 5 hours. That's a long time, and
right.
like you're hungry, like you're troubleshooting along with all these people. Like anything that can go wrong does go wrong. Um, I think one time we were like filming on the roof of this building and they like kicked us off or something like that. Like just all of those things that you have to adjust with, and that's just rolling with how things go on set. Camera batteries go out,
Yeah,
you lose an entire card and then you have to go reshoot something.
right.
Like that's just all the stuff
Oh
that
man.
goes into creating, and everyone always sees the final product and they're like,
Right.
oh wow, like that was pretty straightforward filming. And that they don't realize is that there were like 100 different other shots, or on the chopping block, like when they're actually editing, the
Yeah.
reason they had to cut it that way is because you're trying to hide something that maybe uh you're trying not to make it look like a jump cut or something of that nature.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too. Is we'd have people that would go to Duck TV and we'd have weekly ACE screenings, right? Like I think it was on Wednesdays. And I think the only reason I remember that is because everybody would like it was always in the middle of the week because they were like we can't show it on the weekends that we don't come. Um, but I just remember people being like, "Wow, you guys made it look so effortless." Like we had done it in you know like a day or something. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, like this took literally from the following day after the screening, we would start writing or, whatever, shoot on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, edit all day Sunday, Monday, have it reviewed so that it was like, Rebecca Force would be like, yeah, this is suitable for air, right? And then you'd watch it on Wednesday. And it was like every day you were doing something, but people just didn't know, like, and God forbid, like you say, you didn't save your SD card on your desktop. You just like, I'm just gonna, rip it and go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah,
you
all
have to
those
like do
classic
all that.
things that happen, all those
Yeah.
hardships that you have to learn along the way, but you can only do
Oh,
that. You'd rather learn it within the safe environment of like a
yeah.
school program like that than when you're on site with a client and you're like, hey, that was like a whole day of stuff. Knock on
Yeah.
wood. Now I'm like
Yeah.
getting
Right.
all
Right.
nervous. I'm sweating just thinking about that.
I know it's like, hey, you guys know about your wedding? Yeah. So funny story. No, I'm just joking, but it's like I have night terrors about that, to be honest. But
That's all part of the gig. That's why I like checklists and all that.
yeah.
But yeah, as you were saying, it's just like kind of nice to be in the thick of a school environment that allows you to build things from scratch and just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, like, like you talked about having that safety net. I think one of the biggest things that people who are just starting to film make really is that they're afraid, like, not everything you make is going to be in Sundance. Not everything you make is going to go be nominated for an Oscar. But you really do have to fail a lot. Like, if you're not cringing at your first like 10 videos that you make, you're not doing it right. Like, you have to go out and just try everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of people get hung up on the fact that like their script has to be perfect. They have to have the best equipment. They have to have the best actors, or whatever it is. And the greatest thing about Duck TV, like you said, was like we were just out there trying everything we could, everything we possibly could write or do to push the limits. Was like we were gonna do it,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what I really appreciated about like you and working on the lab, was like bringing these ideas of, well, what if we did it here? Like, I have class in this building, and it has a really great, like glass structure. Like that would look really great for the shot. It's like, okay, well, I don't have science, so I've never been in that building. Let's go do that. That'd be great, or whatever it was. And you would just go, okay, let's grab a DSLR and shoot. Like when there was a lot of kids, I feel like in the film, because I did cinema studies, they're like, well, we don't have a red camera, so we can't shoot this weekend. It's like, what? What? Like, well, I will only, film on the best, and it's like you're missing the point. There's directors like Christopher Nolan shoots on film. Like, it doesn't matter what your equipment or what your style is, as long as you're doing it.
That's so interesting. Yeah, people kind of create their own barriers for like why they want to like around creating. Yeah, if I don't have the right equipment, I know some
Yeah.
people like even if the lighting's not right in the day, they won't go
Yeah.
shoot. So it's just, yeah, I think as a creative, it's easy to put up these like blockades around excuses why you can't.
Yeah, and I like that's the biggest thing I saw on Duck TV was like people were just like, give me something to work with and I'll do the best I can. Like we had, I don't know if you were there at the time, but they used to have this show called Battle Trains. Do you remember that?
I don't think I remember Battle Trains. Maybe we can link to it
Yeah,
for
well,
people.
I've been trying to, honestly, I've been trying to find it because it was like so revolutionary. It was I think his name was Dan Masters, and there's another, like he had a crew, and they spent like probably a couple $100 just decorating their apartment, and they covered it in like tin foil and all, like they set designed the crap out of this. Like it was insane, and they did this whole thing of like trains in space, so they had like green screens, they had like all this stuff, but you could tell it was super indie and super just like we're doing this on a college student's budget, but they made it look great because they put so much of their passion and their heart into it, and everybody was on board. That's what like honestly inspired a lot of us that like came up through when it was just starting out, Duck TV starting out, was like, oh, they just wanted this so bad that they would just like, okay, we're just gonna decorate our apartment and go for it. And it was like the most asinine like premise, like trains battling in space. But it was like it was funny.
Yeah, that's amazing. So they like did tinfoil, like they just invested in it, put tinfoil up all over, and then you can do some cool stuff with lighting and everything with that too, with how it reflects. I can see the vision. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was like it was a total Star Trek vibe. Like they had like solar flares, like, and they were like they had like noises going
sound
on in the
effects,
back, like ambient noise. Yeah, like it was top tier. But yeah.
Pew 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 pew. Yeah,
yeah, it was like
you were about to do it. Yeah,
yeah, you know.
Some R2D2. That even that takes some time to like practice and getting the sound effect on that just right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's amazing. We'll be, as we're still talking about Duck TV, like I do want to acknowledge you, Blair. I think you were the first person to like put a camera in my hands. Like
Really?
I don't even know if you remember this, but it was like I was on shoot and like I was kind of nervous. I didn't like trust my skills as much, but like for some reason like someone else needed to be in the shot. So like you put the camera in my hands and I remember I was like pushing me in like a chair, getting it like all close because they're trying to just the classic, like you didn't have a
Yeah.
gimbal or anything like crazy
No
rig. So it's
dollies.
just like you're using
Yeah.
no dollies. So you're just sitting in the chair, someone pushing you and you're just
Yeah.
trying to keep steady hands, pinched against your chest or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you for putting the camera in my hands on the lab. That was fun.
Yeah, no, you did a great job. I mean, we won awards.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. I think it's
that's
still
credit.
available somewhere out there.
I've made sure that it's been suppressed at this point. I can't kid. It's yeah, no, like what's really funny about that is I had a partner that I would work with a lot. His name is Spencer Gordon, and he was kind of the person that I like. We were in all honesty, like we were pretty opposite in our way of like thinking, but it worked for us because we would like I would have this idea, he would have that idea, and we were really good about compromising, saying, okay, yeah, that works for this scene because X, Y, and Z. Like we wouldn't just be like, oh, I hate that. That shot sucks. We would work through it, and our process worked together um, because we were compatible in the sense of like we didn't have the same train of thought, quote unquote, but the fact that we were able to be artistically compromised in our way of like, yeah, I will defer to that idea because it does work better for the shot or it does make more sense in the script. And I think having somebody that checks you from time to time is necessary. Like he was very like I would write it, I would write the show, and then I would like go, okay, Spencer, like look this over, like what do you think? And he would go, well, this doesn't make sense because in episode 2, he said this, and so I'd be like, oh,
Yeah, kind of
that's
bridging all
right.
those gaps.
Yeah, and you really like that's why I say the crew is so important, and like having somebody that can think like you have to be so synchronous in your way of thinking is like the reason I put a camera in your hand is like I trust you. Like if you're gonna do this shot, like I need you to be able to share my vision. So it's like incumbent on me to say, okay, like how do I get this across so that Brian can film this scene, and it should be very evident in your shot list in your script. Like you should be able to see that and like go, oh yeah, I know what this is supposed to look like. And I thought we did a pretty good job of that on the lab. Like I never felt like a drama like diva director or producer or whatever that was like they're not sharing my vision, they don't get it. It was pretty like everybody was. I was like, okay, we need like a dolly shot right here, and people were like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's also, I mean, just a testament to like I say, having that space of people that want to be there, right? People that want to invest their time. Like you can be doing anything. It's a college town, right? And you're saying, well, I'll be here for 4 hours, 5 hours, like you say, doing the show because we believe in it. And that was like honestly my favorite part was having those people like yourself who would come out and say, let's make something, like let's do something fun. And so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
why
definitely really special like environment to be around. Yeah, other creative minded people and just and getting people all on board and sharing that vision. Like I'll say it's a big testament to you as like a director, and Spencer as well, as like just making it fun and this way making it like an enjoyable experience. And I think that can be tough to do for some like creative endeavors. Whether you're in a band or maybe film, trying to put together like a giant art piece, like any number of things. I don't know why I'm slipping on like creative references, but they'll all come to me after the show and I'm not on the spot. But just getting people on board, because it's not always fun. Sometimes it feels like you're kind of trudging through the mud. You're like having to pull people through it to get everyone on board. You're just like, gosh, thank goodness that like it's wrapped up and done. Like, but I don't think people felt that way at all. And that's a tough thing to create. Like it's kind of like creating a culture on set, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, that you talk about culture on set. Like I I so I teach now at Curtis, like I was saying, and culture is such a big, like set culture is such a big thing, because you can be goofy and have fun, but if it's like you're not there to do business and keep on time schedules, like it could go south really fast. But I thought what was really nice about what we did is like we would like in between takes laugh, and take a beat, take a breath, and be able to reset. But like again, you're like saying we're on the clock, right? Like we can't sit here and just goof off the whole time, or we can't sit here and take like 100 takes. And I think that just comes from the expectation of everybody knowing, like, hey, we are on the clock, and being on the same page. And I think um, a lot of that comes with, again, back to sharing the vision. Like, if you can see it in your head and like see that episode playing out through the script, it makes it a lot easier for your crew to say, yeah, we know what we're supposed to do. Um, but yeah, we always just try to like, we knew that you could have been anywhere on campus you wanted, but we wanted to make sure that you wanted to be there, or it was at least worth your time for like, because we did the lab and then we did, I think it's called That's Sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a sketch show.
It was amazing. Some of those little sketches would be
man.
incredible, like TikToks now, just like
Right.
scrunch, like just cut them up or something like that.
Yeah, and what's funny about that is like, some of these people that were in these shows like went on to be like, I see Susie. She was like in our sketch show, and we're like, oh, she like wants to be an actor. That's really great. And now she's like in commercials, and I'm like, I know her. And I'm like the crazy guy at the bar. It's like, hey, I know her. She used to be in my show. And they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's nice, right? Like, and so it's like really cool to see, like, like Lexi Sloan was one of our actresses in the lab, and she's off in LA doing big things, and we just have a bunch of people that are
big shout outs. It was cool, like,
yeah,
because at the time I was like, oh yeah, it's cool that people like to do that, like maybe they're just kind of pursuing it as like a passion, but no, like people were legit like all in, like that's what they wanted to do. And Doug TV, I think, gave them like probably, if people have some decent stuff in there, maybe they're still using bits of that in their reel today. Just like it gives you the foundation and access to be able to create those things in your portfolio that help you stand out among other people that are applying to similar jobs and things like that in the future.
Yeah, and I that's the thing too, is like, people always say, oh well, for film you don't have to go to school to do this job, you just have to have the experiences. And to an extent that is true, right? Like you can pick up a camera and go film and do stuff, but I think you can't discredit, again, the collective of people. Like back in Tacoma, like when I graduated from U of O, I came back home and I was like, I'm gonna apply this to back home. And I remember joining a film group, and it was like, you look around and you're like, all these dudes are like 40, 50, 60 years old, and they're like kind of like creepy, or like, they're like what is going on, man? Like where's all the young people that are like-minded like me, um and so you can't really discredit that, because a lot of those people, I mean, like we're still talking about it now and how that affected our path.
Totally. No, I totally relate with, like, you got some older guys in the crew, and they're hustling too, and it's like very serious business. Like, so they speak the language, they kind of like, they're in the know, and it's a kind of a tough mold to break into, which they probably spent years and years. And like right away, I don't have any gray hair, so it's like, or I have just like 4 or 5 on each side and the sideburns, so people can't see them as well. They're underneath the cuffs, but things like that, just kind of age discrepancy. Like right away, they're gonna peg you as younger. Like, oh, maybe you don't know as much. Okay, not worth being on our crew. But like Duck TV opened that up, whereas you could get on a show in some form of fashion. Either if you're not going to be an actor, you can be on the camera, or maybe do some of the behind the scenes. Like that was some of the things that I did. Whereas in the real world, those things are just tougher to break into, or people just aren't as willing to just have you be a part of it on set or on crew, because like it's tight knit, and each person you add kind of can slow down the production. I don't know, one of my theories. But
well, I want to ask you this, because you're obviously in the industry, so now I'm taking off the market for the time being as I'm teaching, but you still do like some
freelance gigs though,
I still do some stuff, but it's not the same. But do you find that when you're out there, a lot of people will try to like dwindle you down. They'll say, well, I can just go get, a high school student to do it for free. And they just kind of like try to, you know,
Yeah,
guilt trip
find
you into,
shortcuts around it. And
yes.
I tell them try, like do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want people to go out and like use your phone and try to do like what we can do. Like try to
Right.
replicate 10 years of us doing, video production. Try to replicate
Right.
that because they can. Like the phones are pretty incredible. I actually
Right.
even do some filming on my phone, but to get the right angle and to use the right lighting and have all the know-how around like what's good audio and just even having the vision of like how are all these shots going to sequence together.
Yeah.
You can't replace that. They have to do all the things that we did, was like film little caricatures moving across the room, do like stop motion
Yeah.
stuff. Like you have to put in the reps. You have to go. It's like someone going to the gym and trying to just like bench 250 right away. I still can't, but the gym's always a good analogy. But
Right.
I would say, yeah, I would tell them to go try and do that. But you get what you pay for, and you get what you put into it. So if you think that this video is only going to need like 30 minutes of filming and you're going to edit it in 30 minutes, like good luck to you. But like good things take time. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. So like,
Right. Yeah. And
my 2 cents.
again, like I know we're like talking about this, but I feel like when you're responsible for putting on a show or putting on an event or filming something, you really cannot cheat the process. Like you can try, but it will become so evident so fast that you like, I try to cheat this and now
Yeah, it
paying the
shows up because
price.
someone didn't think about the background and they were just filming.
Right.
It's like, oh, now you can see all these wires and you can see like, oh, there's one of our lights is in the shot. It's just, yeah, like you mentioned, it just needs to like
Yeah.
mull and sit and like all that hardship of creating a piece of art or piece of work.
Yeah.
Like it's irreplaceable. Someone has
And
to do it.
the only reason I asked that is because in one of our shows, I distinctly remember like there was an audible gasp from the crowd because there's a shot, I think it was on the rooftop that you were talking about earlier, where somebody we didn't have a handheld mic, like we didn't have, any sort of audio recording equipment. We had a iPhone that we would like sync up later, right? And so they were holding it where we thought was out of the shot, and we cut to a wide shot, and it's perfectly framed. Like the hand holding the iPod or the iPhone was like right in between a gap, and so you could just see this hand holding this iPhone in the shot, and we're like, and everyone went, and so that's why I was gonna ask you, like, what is the biggest thing that you got like tried to short the system on and got caught? Because that was mine, and I was like, I still have
an
nightmares
iPhone
about
hand
it.
in the shot. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, Andy is like, you're screening for the first time in front of like an audience of like 50 people. Like it was a good sized audience.
Yeah.
Might have to think on that. What's the biggest thing that someone found in there? I will tell. No, I don't know if this is like kind of the same, but this was a more recent one that kind of got me upset. So I like set up my shot to film at like 3 p.m. So like sun's changing quite frequently around that time. So I had my shot ready to go at 3, but the talent didn't show up until like 45 minutes to an hour later. And by then everything had changed. But like I'm a one-man band. So it's like I get pretty flustered. Like I'm already having to like direct to get them comfortable. Like, do you have water? Oh, here's the mirror. Like that's all one job. But then manning the cameras or womaning the cameras,
personing the cameras,
trying to break those molds of all those anyway, just adjusting all the lights and getting everything set up was a really big like challenge. So when we got done with the shot, everything was a lot more orange than it needed to be. It was orange and they were like overblown, and that's because I had originally been accounting for the sun.
Right.
I don't know why that would make it more orange. I probably would have gone more blue thinking back in hindsight, but
Yeah.
everything came out more blue, and only they were like lit up. Whereas when the sun was there, the whole background was lit. Everything was like more balanced. So that was one big hiccup that was kind of annoying. So when I gave them the final product, they're like, why isn't everything like super lit up like we like asked for? And they were just not very upset with they were upset with the final product, but it was kind of just like logistically, like the sun changed. Like
Yeah.
there's not much you can do. And I bumped everything I could in post-production, and there's like really only so much you can do before it starts getting too grainy or starts to look bad.
Right.
So that was a frustration. I was just like, I felt like the blame went on me when it was like, oh, I was ready to go at 3 when the sun was doing its thing, and like I can only like you can do so much with your lighting setup. But it was a good learning experience, and you just find clients that are like less particular about stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people out there that have like these Hollywood expectations, and it's like you're a one man band doing everything. Like that makes it really tricky.
Yeah.
One
Well,
person band. I need to start breaking some of those.
one person. Yeah. No, but the reason I asked you that is because I teach these students the fundamentals. Like I teach video productions at Curtis High School, so I try to teach them the fundamentals. Like you have to have a shot list. You have to have a script. People just think, oh, I'm going to go out there and improvise. Like they think they're like Will Ferrell or something, right? Like I'll just make the funniest thing ever. Um,
A lot of them have that, right? I would say like
every student.
like the false sense of confidence you get from like just making
Yes.
1 or 2 films is unreal in the video world. Like you're on top of the world once you've like made your first video. You're like, oh, I can do that. Like I can make anything, and then you kind of get
Right.
slowly brought back down to earth.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because like in that situation, if I were in that situation that you were in, right, I would totally panic. I would be like, yeah, I'm so sorry, but the reality is like a lot of people, like you say, they don't know what we know. Like they
Mm-hmm.
don't know, like, hey, if we miss golden hour, like there's a reason it's called golden hour. It's not called golden evening, right? It's like you're on a time crunch, and if you want certain things, you have to be able to do stated timetables. You have to be able to like say, okay, we have to be here in like, one of the best cinematographers in the world, Roger Deakins, who's done like 1917, Blade Runner 2049. He'll be like, okay, we need to shoot this direction as the sun's coming up, and then we'll go off and do some other shots, and then we'll have it set up back here at the same place when the sun's going down that way, and so that way we can lighten our load for our shoot, right? We don't have to keep moving everything and all that stuff. And I try to tell students that's the purpose of having a shot list is like you don't want to have to keep like imagine if you had to pack up every single shot, you would never do it. So
Mm-hmm.
shoot all your shots in this location, even if it's at the beginning, middle, or end of your movie or your film. And then next thing you know, you can move on to the next location, and then you throw it all together. And it's like they don't understand that. They think I have to shoot it like so linearly, like we have to shoot like, and then it
Oh,
grows.
you're
Like,
shooting like the
no,
first scene first, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
the last thing you're filming is the last scene of the film. Yeah.
It breaks my heart because I'm like, you guys, like, you're gonna kill yourselves like on time. And I get that it seems like it'd be easier to edit, but it's not because now you still have to log and capture and like which take was the best and which like all that stuff. And so that's why I asked like what's the biggest thing you've cheated the process on, because I don't think I've ever gone to like even for my own, I don't think I've ever come without a shot list and script. But
Okay, yeah, I think I do understand the question a little bit better, and I
yeah,
probably have one for you that's kind of interesting on how the market's doing things. Okay, and then yeah, the orange thing. Now I figured it out. I had it set like the sun was at like 3 o'clock, and then golden
yeah,
hour hit, and so it turned all my orange like super orange, and that's what
right,
happened. But the thing that I've cheated the process on, and it might be actually like more of a stylistic thing now, since I've been doing it for so long, but filming without a script. And that's like the run and gun style that I like
right,
was kind of raised on, which is like that documentary, like,
yeah,
oh, you're out on like at a concert, and like, hey, this person like say something crazy, and like everyone's like, yeah, it says some stuff on camera, and then you splice it together after the fact. Like that was like kind of one of my strategies.
yeah,
But it's come to bite me in the butt, especially as you have more stakeholders in
yeah,
a project. But I would say not scripting, and that's because my mentality or my thought process was like you can get a little bit more authentic responses out of people if you're not
yeah,
saying like, hey, say this, and it sounds like a scripted actor. But it adds more time into the editing. It's like if you don't script, like when you have everything scripted, you know exactly what you want people to say. Then you're just looking for the best take. But when you open it up to non-scripted, then people can say anything, and you're like, oh, maybe that is usable, or like we could splice these two parts together, and it just adds a lot more time to it. And people don't realize that. They're just like, we don't want to have to practice. Like we want to just be able to jump in and say whatever in an interview, and it could be good or it could not be good. You're really relying on the talent to know their stuff. And some people freeze up on, and maybe they know their stuff, but they freeze up on camera. So it's just like a roll of the dice. And I would say maybe like 20% of people can do that at best, but that kind of that false sense of confidence, like 80% of people think they can just talk extemporaneously on an interview and have it be good and usable. But I would say not scripting. And then the reason it bit me in the butt was we got done with like, I put together the whole story, and then they like wanted to keep editing the script after it was already done. And like, you would never do that. Like you would normally get the script approved by everyone. Like if you're making a film, you get the script, the storyboard, everything approved by everybody beforehand. But when we were doing it post approval, like it was infinite times of the revisions that we could do. So we wound up cutting down a script that was like 20 minutes, and the final product wound up being like 11 minutes. So like I was adding B-roll and adding all this crap to a 20-minute film, and that's all it takes time. And like I think one of the old rules of thumb is like it's 10 hours of work for every 1 minute of production is like one of the ones I've heard. I don't know, maybe even longer if you're newer into the business too.
Yeah, I mean, I've always heard when I was doing it, it used to be an hour for each minute, and now I think with how things are going and how people, like you say, I think the biggest mistake is that people make is they go, I can be on camera, like I'm funny, I'm charismatic, and then you point the camera in their face, and it's like you have like a magical like spell, like a Doctor Strange like artifact, and you point it out, and they're like,
they freeze up.
They freeze up, and so I'll share this little bit of wisdom with you. It's called having planted. You know what that is?
No. What's a planted?
Planted is something that you like hope will happen. Like you kind of steer it by like suggestions, but then they think it's their idea. So it's like a candid, but you planned it. So nice. Planted. So that's helped out a lot. I think with like you're out in the freelance world, if you kind of have that vision of like what this is going to look like while you're filming it, like the editing process. And I think the biggest thing that you need to be is not just an editor, like just to edit. I think you have to be a filmmaker who also happens to edit, right? So you can think about, okay, like you're doing, right? Like I got to think about lights. I have to think about, audio. I have to think of all this, because that ends up actually saving you time in editing, because now you're saying, if I move the camera over here and have the other camera over here, then I can just do using a multi, cam sequence and all that stuff. And then that's when the efficiency starts to come in, and the time, it goes from 10 hours to 1 hour. I mean, that's 9 hours that you just saved of your life. And so that's one of the things, like I'm not saying I never run and gun, because there are some times you do documentaries, but like kind of having those suggested, you kind of forethoughts of like,
the preemptive like shot list of like you kind of know what things are going to be there. And I do that a little bit. I don't really run and gun as hard as I used to, where you just there's so many of these like
we're not young men anymore.
Spray and pray and all that, and then like 90% of the stuff isn't even usable. You kind of want to kind of walk it out in your head, and that's such a good point. Like you kind of want to be a director mindset, but have an editor kind of in the back pocket, like as well. And I kind of think of it, each of them are like different instruments, like, being an editor is its instrument, or like in the editing room, or like playing, or like, filming, like with your camera is like playing guitar or something like that. Like each of them, they're their own skill set, but they work together to create a symphony or create like a final product, which is, your video. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that, like, one of the projects we do for my advanced class is I tell them like how different the filming process is from the editing process, and they always go, "Mr. Limber, it's not that deep." And I go, "Okay, here's the assignment, right? You guys are gonna film a comedy, and then in editing, you're gonna turn it into a horror." And
Mm.
they always go, "What? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "You're gonna film a comedy. You're gonna write a script for a comedy, and then in editing, you're gonna turn it into a horror film."
Wow.
And they always go, "That's so stupid." And then all of a sudden, they start editing, and they go, "Oh." They start to see the beats and the rhythms in the shots, and they go, "Oh, like he made a face right there. We can make it look like he's like shocked, so we can be like," and then they do the music, the violins, like,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And so that's why I say, like, you really have to be. There's two mindsets. There's the filmmaker mindset and there's the editor mindset. And if you can combine those two, you're unstoppable. And that's like one of the things that like I say, you have to, um, can't cheat that process. You have to be able to do everything. You have to be able to like, I need to go
Mm-hmm.
learn lights. I need to go learn, sound.
Yeah, whatever your like kind of weaknesses are, you have to kind of dabble in that. And like I always found like giving myself like personal projects helped me develop that. But I think that was such a good point. Like you can create a mood, like filming something like visually you see something, but through audio and through color correction, you can create a different kind of look and feel. 100%. I
Yeah.
remember like my buddy was playing like a pretty upbeat song on ukulele, like a Beatles song, very upbeat.
Yeah.
And I just tweaked just I think I brought it down like a half note, like all the
Yeah.
audio, and made it like more flat and right away, and then put some grain on there. And you're like, whoa, this is like an upbeat song. But then it felt like it kind of made you like this nostalgic, like, oh my gosh, like this might be the last time he ever plays that song kind of feel like, oh my, like it's crazy how quickly you can change it just
Yeah.
with all those other things that we talked about.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating. Have any of them really kind of like blown you away? Like, man, I kind of almost cried at that one.
Yeah, there was one where so they did like a comedy where um our room like the room 308 was haunted. Um and it
I
was like
remember that.
just yeah. And so they filmed it as a comedy like a Ghostbusters, happy go lucky. And then when they got into editing, they were like they had like, the roadie cam where it's like shaking and they're like, they're screaming, and then they would add in just the music and the temperament changed. It like flipped, and I just remember being like, "That is the purpose of this assignment." Like like I know the kids are using this, but they understood the assignment to the point where it was like achievement unlocked. It was like like when you get that and it just clicked, and you could see it in their eyes. They're like, "Yes, this is what Mr. Lindbergh was talking about," because it's so easy to just be like, okay, we're gonna film this, and then it's gonna be processed. Like you say, it's like it, it seems so straightforward, but really, where your stuff comes alive is the preparation, and then the execution and editing is where your show comes to be. Because like that's just what editing is. Like that's why I love editing so much, is because that's where your creation like I always view it like, this is really gross, but I always view it as like your film. When you're filming, it's kind of like the 9 months before you're being born, and then the editing process is like your child coming out into the world. Like that's your baby,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's honestly why I think it's so
I don't think that's gross.
important.
Everyone has to go through that.
Yeah, everybody, yeah, exactly.
We all
But
had to be born.
right, but it's just like you have to still take care of that. Like you can't, you know like just do whatever you want when you're pregnant, right? Like you have to like still have good sleep and like take care of stuff and prepare and
Mm-hmm.
go to classes and stuff, right? Like there's that process that you can't really cheat if you want everything to go right. And so
Yeah, and I always
um
find things take like twice as long as I was anticipating. So if that's
oh
always
yeah.
good too, like you think you're gonna be sitting down to edit this for like an hour, you might as well plan for like two at the minimum. And like,
Yeah.
because sometimes you get in the swing of things and you're like, oh wait, this is kind of cool. And I find like when I'm in the editing room, like I'll bump something or do something on accident. I'm like, wait, that actually is cool. And then like you replicate it and you kind of like,
Yes.
that's when the best stuff happens, is when I make a mistake. Usually it leads to something cooler.
Yeah. that's what I say, like, go out and fail, right? Like, maybe you go for a joke and it doesn't land, but you say, well, that technique is cool. I can use that. I can carry that. I think just building your repertoire, like you say, just you have to spend time. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing. I think people today think, well, I can just go film a TikTok and edit it in 10 minutes and be famous. And it's like a lot of those big TikToks, like you take like Zach King, for instance, right?
Yeah, local Portland shout out.
Yeah, exactly. And so he probably spends a couple of days planning out, okay, we have to do this. We have to like do staging and blocking. You guys need to be here. Like, it's not just like he went out and say, all right, let's
Oh
do
yeah, he's
this.
a really good example because his is
Yeah,
like he puts magic in there. Like
right.
he's able to like break my mind with what he even does. But yeah, that probably took a lot of prep work. And I think it's
Yeah,
such a huge thing to let people know. I find this with clients even like they have no idea like and they don't even know how much time that they might need to even put in too. Cause it's
yeah,
like I need you to approve this script. I need you to like look at the shot list. Like, are these the things that you actually want in your video? And some want to be like really hands-on. Like they pretty much like want to be the director and that gets
right.
them like juiced, but like when they're the director, they're taking out some of the ingredients that I might be putting in there and it becomes a
Yeah,
totally different soup.
right. Yeah,
But I would say, yeah, putting in that prep work, yeah, just getting everything organized because you're gonna have to put in the time at some point. So if you don't put it on the front end, you're gonna have to
right.
put a ton of it on the back end of the video and when in the editing room. Like you probably remember that everyone's like, oh yeah, we'll fix it in post.
Oh, those are the three words that are not allowed in my classroom. I say, if you say fix it in post, oh man, you're getting an automatic F. And obviously I'm being facetious, but it's yeah, because it's just it shouldn't. You should be thinking about like how this is going to affect the one person, because it's not like 10 people can edit a film. It comes out of one person, so it's kind of like you need to do right by your
Mm-hmm.
crew, right? Like you have to look out for them. But
You need to set them up for success. Like don't just like hope that your editor, especially if they're kind of a newer editor, like the ones in your class, like just hope and pray that they
yeah,
can piece it together somehow. Like a
yeah,
good editor can, but they're having to think like way outside the box of what the initial project was. And
yeah,
that's too much of an ask. And it's either hit or miss if
yeah.
it works out.
Well, so we do themed. We have a weekly show called CHN, which is Curse High School Network, and we did an April Fool's special, which was really hilarious, where we're practicing doing tracking motion and using Mocha, which is a third-party app that you can use in After Effects and stuff like that. And for the joke, he motion tracked our like sign that's like on our out front of our school that has like all the important dates and stuff like that. He hacked it where he put like the Nyan cat or whatever, and so he tracked it so well that people are like, oh, like this dude hacked the sign. Like he got called down. They're like, how did you get access to this? He's like, I didn't. This is like Mr. Liver's video class, right? And it was just a testament to he had thought about like, okay, I'm gonna have a shaky camera, but if I do just enough or too much shake, it's gonna look fake. But if I like kind of have it like this, it'll look good, and I'll make it look real. And so when he went to edit, it was super simple. He just plugged it in, and his editor was like, did it maybe in 15 minutes, and then took an hour to render. But we don't talk about that. And then
Hey, that's still part of the production
yeah,
time.
it is. You still bill for that, by the way.
Yeah.
So so it was like, but the magic of that was the preparation for that paid off, because people were like, I can't believe you hacked the sign. Like it was like a big thing, and then we get in trouble, and that's a good problem to have, to be honest. It's like we have to convince people that it was it was our skills and not that we were just actual troublemakers, which is funny. But
That's amazing. I'm trying to like kind of see the vision in my head. It's kind of reminds me of like that old film, not that old, but Sector 9, where like it's all kind of shaky cam, but they put alien shots in there. Like that's its own skill set.
yeah,
Like so if he's like filming, I'm guessing like did he film it like on his phone and then you guys like superimposed it, or did he
yeah,
actually? Okay, and so people thought that he had. That's so cool.
yeah.
And
He
that's just
filmed it
like a
like a vlog.
gateway to like CGI. And like, that's a whole other realm that I haven't even really ventured down because it breaks my brain too much. But like those
Yeah,
guys are they're geniuses, like to be able to make that all happen.
Yeah, no, it's like we're just talking about like this week we're doing lightsabers because next week is May the 4th and we're doing a Star Wars special. And so, you know,
That's a throwback. That's
it
amazing,
really
dude.
is,
I
right?
remember back in when I was going through like always
Yeah.
lightsabers of some kind, and you can do
Yeah.
so much with it.
Yeah, and now it's like it's so much simpler. The technology is really making it so much easier than what we had back in the day. But yeah, it's just one of those really cool things that you know we're just trying to prep the youth and give them skills so that they can go out there and really reach for the stars. I think the limitations that people put on themselves, like I can't do it, or it took me until I was in college to even attempt to open After Effects. And then once I got in there and like started to understand, oh, it's basically just a lot of keyframing and time consuming like stuff that I don't really necessarily want to do. Um, it ups your like your production value and your like hireability tenfold. Like, if you're able to say, yeah, I can motion track this thing, and now motion tracking, like back in when we were doing it in high school or college and high school, it was like you had to like go there and like frame by frame like move it, adjust it, and like tweak it to
Yeah,
make
and to
it
put
like a real.
things in perspective, everybody, there's
Yeah.
30 frames in 1 second.
Yeah.
So then you had to do 30 frames times like it's a 10-second clip. You do the math,
Yeah.
like adds up.
Yeah. And so now they you can just like select a point and you can go track, and it'll, you know thanks to like filters and stuff and motion tracking, like
Yeah.
it's a lot simpler now. And
The technology is getting smarter. Like it's like smart tracking, or probably is
yeah.
like what some of them are called. And yeah, it's amazing. And we would spend forever just trying to like learn how to do it. And it's its own job set. Like there's people that only just do kind of they're in the motion. And I have a friend who made the jump. Like he was doing more film, trying to do commercial
Yeah.
stuff, and not trying, was actually doing commercial stuff, but wanted to I don't know, just like saw an opportunity, maybe because of COVID, people are doing more remote stuff. Like he's like, I'm going to go all in on learning motion graphics, and, took some online courses. And I don't know, he might be in After Effects, but same for myself. Like I opened up After Effects. I think the first 3 times I opened up, I got like too scared and like closed it, and like it was like, okay, I'll try this like later. And I
Yeah.
kept coming back to it, and eventually like learned how to like kind of animate some text. And I'll use it more for now personally, like when I'm animating like a lower third,
Yeah.
or some kind of transitions, I'll put it in there.
Yeah.
I'll use After Effects, but that's just scratching the surface. Like I know less than 1% of how the whole software works. But if you know even 10% or 5%, you
Right.
can do amazing things.
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty incredible software.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not getting sponsored by Adobe, but I mean they have stuff for like you can do content fill aware, so you can like remove things, like if somebody ruined your shots. Like now, like going back to like if I could do it over again in After Effects, we could have taken out that foam that was in the shot, right? Like, or that kind of stuff, and fix it in post. I know it's like, but now you have the opportunity to really refine that and like learn that skill, and you're like, I don't want to have to do that again. I know how to do it, but I don't want to have to do it again. So then, yeah, it goes back to that.
And then, yeah, I find that if it's so long ago, I've like forgotten how to do it. And so you have to relearn how to do it all again. And like, so it's a process. And yeah, there's certain things you want to avoid if you already kind of know what the challenge was.
Yeah.
Well, before we kind of wrap up, yeah, shout out to CHS, CHN.
Yeah.
Everyone go on to YouTube and give them a subscribe if you can. It's helping out the students. But I do have, this has been in the background of all my shots for like so long. But I have my old, those lights are indestructible. Probably didn't break. But
There it is.
You got the swag on, so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll
I
pull
got
out
the
mine.
CHN.
Yeah, Curtis Vikings. I thought this one was pretty cool. It's like
Go Vikes.
Go Vikes. Bleed blue and white. Yeah.
That's what we need. We need to bring those back. We need
Yeah.
the scarves.
I owe a lot to Curtis because that was my first I did this commercial, like we did hats, like CHS hats with like kind of the logo built in, and like I made a music video for that hat, like wrote all the lyrics, and like I think I was just like on a groove, but I was able to edit like in one night, which isn't always the case, and obviously no color correction or any,
Right.
things I would change now. But that was a cool project. So who knows? Like for a lot of those students that are in your classes, like the projects that they're doing now, they'll remember like their whole lives, honestly. And
Yeah.
if they do a project the right way, they can incorporate that in their portfolio for many years.
Yeah, and I only take a 3% cut of whatever they make after they take my class. So
Love it.
I,
Royalties.
so yeah, no, it's all good. But yeah, yeah.
Do you guys spend a good amount of time on like sound design or anything like that too? Like a
We
lot of people
do.
think they only see the visual, but this is for people listening. Like you should be spending just as much time on the visuals as they do the audio too.
Oh, I spend half. So the first quarter we talk about basic camera shots and movements, and then we move into Foley work and like ambient sound. So the biggest thing, if you're just starting out and you're filming, especially high school students, they don't think to listen for like, hey, is my oven or my fan or my these, what are they called? The lights.
Oh, like fluorescent lights, they
Fluorescent
give off
lights.
like
Thank you.
a
A
sound too.
whine
Yeah.
or a hum, right? And so thinking about how to really circumnavigate that, or think about, okay, well, maybe I can use Premiere Pro and there's hum remover, but then it
But then it
sounds
gets like a
bad,
tinny
and
kind of sound
yeah,
to it because you're taking out some of those frequencies that create like a full sound. That's
yeah,
so cool. And I think for me,
yeah,
it's like when I'm on set, like you almost have like a sixth sense. And like
yeah,
you start picking up on things. And even I'm like, hey, can you unplug your refrigerator? They're like, wait, what? Why? I was like, it's giving off like a huge hum right now. And they don't even know it because it's background noise, or they call it like white noise, just in the
yeah,
background. So like it's fascinating. And each room has its own set of acoustics. So like it's like you were mentioning, like when you want to block off all these shots, because just going from like room to room for a different setup, not only are
yeah,
you adjusting for like the frame, you're adjusting for the lights and for the audio that could be affecting the shot.
yeah. Audio. I Number one biggest issue with new filmmakers, or people just learning video productions in general, is audio. Like if you want to separate yourself from the pack, you really have to account for audio, because there's nothing worse than having good audio in one scene and then you make a cut and it's like, it's like, it's so jarring and it takes you out of the story that you're trying to watch. Um, because like the first thing we see and then we hear. And so if you're connecting visually, but then all of a sudden something jars you orally, you're going to say, like, wait, what's going on? Like you get confused. And so having that consistency, even if it's just saying, well, this noise is, I've had students cheat the system and they say, well, this noise is in one shot, we can't remove it, so we'll replicate it and then put it on the whole shot. I'm like, you know what? I'll give you points for
They just dirty the
continuity.
whole water. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And I was like, but also kind of not the point. But it's like, I'll give you points for trying. It's creative.
That's amazing. So they're like, oh,
Yeah.
we had this lawnmower going in the background, so we're just gonna do lawnmower through everything, and maybe no one will notice because they're like in the
Yeah.
lawnmower mindset.
But alternatively, like if you have a scene, right? This is a big thing that they do too. Is like if you have a scene who someone is mowing the lawn, and then you like cut and you take a break, so somebody had to go to the bathroom or something, whatever, and you come back and they're not mowing the lawn. Like you need to have that consistently. Like if that's something
Mm-hmm.
that's going on, and so that's a learning curve for them too. Is like, how do you have continuity not only in your shots but your sound?
Yeah.
That's a different discussion for a different day. But
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
yeah.
Do you, bringing things to you, Blair, what's like your favorite part of the video production process? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, I really I love every part of it. I love the writing. I love the filming. I love the editing. It's almost like having three different jobs. I never get bored in each stage. Like it's because I don't know. I like to think that I'm a good storyteller, but the good story comes when you're writing. You have to be able to like convince yourself that it's a good story first, and that's I think always the hardest, because I don't know about you, but I'm always my hardest critic, and so I'm like, if something's not working or it's really bad, I'm like, this is terrible. And so, um, I just like convincing myself, then going out and convincing other people, and then getting those people to like convince the other people um, through the filming and then eventually the editing. That's, I don't know. I just love all of it. It's why I wanted to do film. It's like why in high school I was like, this is what I want to do, because it's yeah, it's so different each step of the way. It goes from one or maybe a couple to a big group and then back down to one. And so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. There's like every step of the process like has its own unique things that it brings to the table. And like, yeah, it is three jobs and it keeps it exciting because like, I don't know, there's always like something new to learn in each of those different realms.
Yeah,
And they all work together. So like knowing how to do each of them just makes an overall like better, finished product or
yeah,
finished film, finished art piece.
yeah, because
Product and art piece are kind of, one sounds a little more slimy, one sounds like, this is,
yeah,
I put everything into this, and you really did. Like we were talking about, you could be doing a million other things, but like you chose to like work on this project, and like you're putting a little piece of your soul into it, especially if
yeah,
it's writing and you're kind of putting a story out there and trying to see if that's gonna land. Like, because stories told well, like in our society, get told
yeah,
over and over again for the really good ones we've heard of. You think of I don't know, stories of the Bible. Think of even like Egyptian stories or Babylonia, like Gilgamesh, all these old stories that like they've stood the test of time. The people haven't and the structures haven't, but the stories are like word of mouth have kind of stuck with us.
yeah. Well, and that's what you like. That's what I think is the most satisfying part. Is like when you're writing something and you're putting yourself out there. The filmmaking is one of the only things where I think if you get a win, it's like, legends never die, kind of like that kind of mentality. Like you might be a car salesman, no slack to the car salesman, like, hey, I got car salesman of the month, and then it's like, cool, your pictures on the wall. But with like filmmaking and storytelling, like people will be like, oh, like there's people who will remember that story that you made 10
Mm-hmm.
years ago, right? And then it's like how that impacted them, or whatever they got from that, and they share that with other people, or they incorporate it into their own story. And like that to me is why filmmaking is fun, and that's why I like the whole process, because you get a lot of wins along the way. It's kind of like a baseball series, it's not like football, hey, we have one game and we won. It's like we have to win the series. You have to win in writing, you have to win in filming, and you have to win in editing. And if you,
Execution, yeah.
yeah, and if you don't get, at least, 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4, um, you don't win the series. And so that's why I like, yeah, that's
That's
why
a
I
cool
just like about,
analogy. Yeah, I like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, just trying to pull it all off. It is amazing because yeah, you could have the best story, but if you don't light it and film it and execute it the right way, then people don't care. Or maybe the audio was really bad throughout the entire thing and people stopped watching after the first 3
right,
seconds because
yeah,
they just like won't put up with it. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how everything has to come together. And that's like, we're a team in collaboration, and getting people all on the same page really comes into play.
absolutely, yep. It's the most unique job in the world, I think.
Yeah.
There's
I
nothing
think
else
it's
like it.
I think what a lot of people probably underestimate with like doing this video production stuff is like how organized you have to be. All the
Yeah,
phases have to be organized. You have to pre-production be organized with the shots that you want to have done. You need to be organized with actually filming them, and then in the editing room, like organization is so huge. Anyone, I think a lot of people listening, yeah, many people could edit together like 5 clips, 6 clips together, move them around. But can you do 200 clips? Can you do
right.
1,000 clips and organize those? Like it's a puzzle.
Yeah, if you guys ever want to see, Brian does a great job. Like he'll take a picture, and I'll be like, God bless him for he's editing
No,
like
you're giving me
a
some
real
tips.
one.
You're like, you need to start nesting more, bro.
Yeah, I was like, do you even nest, bro? No, it's just like, I mean, nesting is, I don't nest too. I like to see the whole map, but
Right.
it's
My
just,
wife like learned some good habits when she was first learning. I'm like a lot self-taught, so it's just
yeah, same.
piecing it together. And then like you mentioned, I like kind of seeing where it all is. But
Yeah,
it
yeah,
a lot of the really good video editors, they have layers to this. So like
yeah.
you're seeing like the top layer, but you click in, it's like a whole nother thing. You click in, it's another thing. It's like
I can't do that because I have to be able to see what's happening when, where, and if you bump something, it becomes a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie about that. But like, I don't know. There's something like if you nest it away. I guess if you like have it like you're like I'm really good with that part, I'll nest it, and it's like the lower thirds animation or something like that keyframe. You're like, I'm good with that, and you can nest it. But I don't know. I don't.
Some people I think just like cleaner timelines too.
Yeah.
Like they get kind of overwhelmed if there's more than a set amount on there.
You have to scroll up. You're like, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. but I see people, they add so many layers. Like I get it. Like if you have like 20 layers on a clip, it always crashed my computer if I ever tried to do like more than 10. So maybe I'm just like still shell shocked from like I started off on a laptop and I would like put all these layers because I'm like, oh, I want to do like kind of that Brady Bunch, but times like 10. So like all these little frames and just like would crash and you save it and you troubleshoot. Man. Well, before we kind of like wrap things up, Blair, what's one thing that you see like a lot of people doing that they could probably do to improve their video production?
Just going out there and doing it. Don't like have excuses of, oh, I can't do it this weekend. Like I don't have the camera that I need. I don't have the lighting I need. Go out there and fail. Finding new ways to make film. Like you don't have to have a $1,500 lighting kit to make a film. And then the other thing too is just learn from your mistakes and apply it to the next one. Keep making those films. Like if you're not, like I said at the beginning, if you're not cringing at the first 10 things that you make, you're not doing it right because you're not learning. Mistakes prove that you're trying. So just going out, just grab a camera, grab a friends, and go do it.
That's awesome. I think that's a pretty good one to wrap on. Don't be afraid to fail, everybody.
Don't be
Blair,
afraid
this
to fail.
has been an awesome episode. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Yes,
it's been amazing. And everyone, Duck TV, please help support. That program means so much to students out there. It was how both Blair and I were able to get a lot of our confidence and a lot of our ability in what we do. So please check out the petition, and we'll put some of the other links that are in the show notes. But that's a great way to get involved and help out a school program that's going to help people. So, all right, Blair, till next time.
Till next time, Brian. Thanks so much. Have a good one, man.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for checking out the Tactus Media podcast. Please let us know if you have any questions, anything that we can help with. We're here for you. Did you find this podcast valuable? Please subscribe and turn on those notifications. If you feel compelled, let us know how we're doing. Leave us a review.